Hi everyone, I'm Paloma and I will be talking about the politeness system in Spanish and Korean. For this occasion, I will focus the most on the Spanish language, but I will make some points for the Korean language as well. So, politeness is the way in which we talk to another person depending on how old they are in their social hierarchy or how close you are to them. So, for example, you wouldn't talk to your grandmother the same way you would to a professor or a children. In many cultures, there are different norms on how you have to interact with people, especially whenever you are talking to them. So, a way to show respect in many languages, such as Spanish, is using different pronouns. For example, in the English language, we only have the pronoun you for the second person. However, in Spanish, we may have different pronouns to refer to you, depending if the person is older or younger than you. So we have two ways in which we can translate the pronoun you, which is tú and usted. Tú is an informal way and it can be often used whenever you're talking to a friend, children, peers, and some family members such as your siblings. Some people might also refer to their parents as tú. However, there's a difference in opinion whether this is correct or not, since some families are more strict and prefer to be called by usted. Usted is used when speaking to elders, teachers, doctors, and is often used whenever you're talking to a stranger, whether or not you are the same age or not. So, for example, if you want to ask a friend, do you eat soup? You would say, ¿Tú comes sopa? However, if you want to ask the same question to a professor, you would ask, ¿Usted come sopa? As you may have noticed, the verb also gets modified whenever we're speaking in a formal manner. So it changes for all tenses. However, for this one, I'm gonna focus on the past tense since it's the one where the verb changes the most. So if you wanna state the fact to your friend, ¿Tú comiste una manzana? You would say comiste for ate. However, if you wanna say the same thing to a professor, you would state, Usted comió una manzana. Although they both mean the same thing in English, they can be different depending on the politeness level. So you also have to use the right pronoun with the right verb, or the sentence can be very awkward. Because the verb already implies if we are being formal or not, pronouns are often dropped off of the sentence. So you don't have to use tú and usted all the time. Since the verb already implies the level, you can just say comiste una manzana or comió una manzana. There are two ways in which you can translate you in an informal way, which is tú and also vos. However, vos comes from like the older Spanish, and right now it's only used in Spain and some South American countries. So you can still use the pronoun tú and people will understand you 100%. So, for example, if you want to ask a friend, ¿Tú comes sopa? But if that friend is maybe from like a South American country, they would ask you, ¿Vos comes sopa? There's also a slightly different pronunciation of the verb in this case. So, in the first example, you would say, Tú comes sopa. But for the second one, you would say, Vos comes sopa. This only happens in a very few countries. So, this is more like a dialect difference that happens. Specific titles can also be used to indicate respect. So we often use the titles señor and señora, which translate to Mr. or Mrs., Sir or Ma'am, depending on the context. And you can also use the titles don and doña for highly respected man or female. However, you have to be very careful when using this since people often relate this to very old people, and although you want to be respectful to them, they might see you as you are saying they are old. If you are not sure how old is the other person, or you know for sure this person is not married and has never been married, you can use the titles señorita, which translate to miss or ma'am for woman, or you can use the title joven, which is Mr. or Sir, and it's in a less formal manner, but it's still showing some form of respect towards them. So, in the Korean politeness system, there are a lot of ways you can show respect and politeness. In this case, second person pronouns are not commonly used, but just know they exist. So, no is the plain style of you. You would use this for your children, for a friend, or your significant other. And we have 당신, 자네, 댁, and 어르신, which are plain or blonde. And although they are respectful, you have to be careful when using them, since the connotation can be taken out of place. So, for example, 당신 can be used for talking to a general public, like let's say this is the title of a magazine or a newspaper. 당신의 고민은 털어드립니다, which translates to we will eliminate your pain. It's okay because in this case we're not talking to a specific person. However, whenever you're using it for a real life conversation, this can be seen as rude or confrontational, so you have to be careful. So, the ending of the verb often indicates the speech level on how polite you are. So, like in Spanish, we drop the pronoun completely. So, for a polite way, if you wanna say the same thing, you ate an apple, you would say 사과를 먹었어요. If you wanna be informal or talk to a friend, you would drop the you and just say 사과를 먹었어. For the differential style, which is the style maybe the news will talk to, you would say 사과를 먹었습니다. And if you want to talk in the plain style for like a journal writing, you would say 사과를 먹었다. So because second person pronouns are rare, you are often asked to use a title instead. So there are family titles. They are not used only in the family, but that's the way you can relate to them. So you can use 오빠, 누나, 형, or 언니. The suffix she is also often used as a suffix after the name to show some form of respect. So, for example, if your name is Mino, you would say Minoshi. Professional titles are often preferred, so you would say 교수님 or 사장님, and you can see 님 is often used. So, in conclusion, Spanish and Korean have high respect for people, and just like pronouns, verbs can also indicate politeness. A simple letter can change the meaning completely. Thank you.